Y'all, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the Neca Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Nickelodeon 2012 Donatello. This version of Donatello first appeared in Season 1, Episode 1, Rise of the Turtles on September 29th, 2012. In this incarnation, he's the third oldest brother of the Turtles, the brains of the team as per usual, the scientific genius, hacker, mechanic, inventor, weapons specialist. However, this version is a lot more high-strung, defensive, and argumentative. He has a crush on this version of April O'Neil, and is also right-handed. Alright, so as per usual, the box art is fantastic. NECA always does a great job with their box art, but we're not here to talk about that. Let's go ahead and get this figure free from its plastic prison and see what we think about Donatello. Alright, y'all, so fresh out the box, this thing looks great. I think NECA did a great job. Just first thoughts, I think they nailed it. This thing looks exactly how I remember it looking on the show. I say this thing. Donatello looks exactly how I remember him looking on the show, and I'm just really impressed with this. I do have to say, and I'll probably say it on all my reviews, that having a more traditional style articulated action figure of this version of the Turtles is very exciting for me because I loved the Revoltech figures with the exception of how their joints worked. And I have a little bit of PTSD holding this figure and trying to move it around because I, for so long, had those Revoltech figures and you got to take the joints out and switch them around and then plug them back in. And it wasn't very intuitive to me. Like, it didn't feel natural. And so just being able to like move this figure around and hold it in my hands and not worry about it breaking so much is a awesome amount of relief that I'm experiencing, and like deprogramming myself from my previous experience with this version of these characters, if that makes any sense. But yeah, the sculpt looks amazing. Like, there's so much detail in the shell and in the elbow and knee pads. And then the wraps, they all look awesome. And then the head sculpt looks great. And the pupilless eyes are amazing. I love that. Really just across the board in any superhero action figure that is wearing a mask. I love pupilless eyes. And then the paint is spot on. I mean, it's got so much detail, just accenting the sculpt that has all that detail in it already. The paint is just complementing it so much more and making everything pop. This is just awesome. And yeah, I am very happy with this. It has a nice solid weight to it, which probably is coming mostly from the feet being so huge, because that's like a hallmark for this series, is that almost every character, especially the mutants, generally had big feet. And so as an action figure fan, I absolutely love that, because that means they're gonna stand on their own and they could potentially hold poses a lot easier, more so than like characters with thin feet, which I don't know, that sounds weird to me. That sounds like an insult. Like, you got thin feet. Like, I don't know, like that's like an insult that someone would say to somebody like on a playground or something. But it's true though. Like, the bigger the feet or the shoes, like with action figures, a lot of the times it's easier. So it's kind of nice knowing that you've got a lot of room at the base of these figures to be able to get them in some dynamic poses and know that they can hold them. So that's really awesome. But yeah, it's got some heft to it and it feels nice. It looks awesome, and just moving around a little bit, like I can't wait to get into this review. So let's get into it. Donatello comes with a bow staff, a bladed staff extension, 2 interchangeable heads, 6 interchangeable hands, a tracking device, goggles, a pizza slice, a smoke bomb, a turtle comm, and Dr. Cluckingsworth, MD. Alright, so according to Turtlepedia, this version of Donatello stands at around 5 foot 6 inches tall, and I couldn't find how much he weighs, but this figure stands just shy of 6 inches tall and weighs close to 4 ounces. So now let's see how he measures up to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here he is with my custom painted version of Donatello from this series, and Donatello from the Batman TMNT crossover. Here he is with the Neca 1987 animated series Donatello, and then the Playmates TMNT Classics Donatello. Here he is with Hasbro's Fortnite Man Cake and Super 7's Donatello. Here he is with the Neca knockoff color bandana Mirage Comics Donatello and the Neca Return to New York 4-pack Donatello. Here he is with Hasbro's Marvel Legends Spider-Man and Figma's Pokemon Gloria. Here he is with Jada Toys Street Fighter Dalsim and SH Figuarts Kamen Rider 01. Here he is with Storm Collectibles Mortal Kombat Reptile and McFarlane's DC Multiverse Clock King. Here he is with Hasbro's Power Ranger Lightning Collection Blue Ranger and Mattel's Masterverse Roboto. And here he is with Marvel Select Hulk and the DC Direct Arkham Asylum Killer Croc. I found this version of Donnie very annoying. I mean, I liked him, and I like that the turtles are all different and they're not all like my favorite kind of thing. And I like that he was different from a lot of the other Donatellos that we've had in the past. But I think that the expounding of the turtles' characteristics that they did for this show might have gone a little too far with his frustrated side. I don't know. It could have also just been having Rob Paulson, who was the voice of the original 87 Raphael, do this Donatello's voice. Might have had something to do with my appreciation or lack thereof of him. This is all from memory. So when we go back and rewatch it on our podcast, Turtle Soup, I might sing a different tune. But still, overall, I liked the character, even though I found him annoying. And to be honest, that annoyance also carried over to this figure, at least at the beginning. I don't know if I've articulated that in the beginning of this review, I can't remember, but there's just something about the shape of his head that just really irritates me. And I realize that it was just the pupilless head and not the pupilled head, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Get it? Head. Anyway. But regardless of all that, I still think Neca did a great job here. This figure looks a lot like how the character looks from the show, which is the intent. And the quality of this figure is great. The sculpt and paint is really good, just like the rest of the figures in this line. And the details that are in the leather straps on the back of the shell, and even on the front of the shell too, with some scarring and stuff. But specifically in the scrapes and just the construction of the elbow and knee pads, and then the straps on the feet and the wrist are just really cool and really in a really simple way to make this design pop, especially when you have the sculpting of those things just to where they're not just like painted on, you know, there's actual like texture to them. Adding to that really cool paint and then really cool wash on top of that, it just makes the figure stand out and pop, and it's really good. The articulation is great. It's your standard modern adult collectible action figure articulation. Again, you've got the double joints in the knees and the elbows. You got some articulation in the chest that's hidden by the shell, which is really cool. And like I've said in each one of my turtle reviews so far, the MVP for the articulation on this figure is gonna be the giant foot and ankle rocker combo. That's just something that has put these figures on a whole other level for me. It gives them so much literal foot space to stand on their own and not need a figure stand, and you can get them in really cool dynamic poses and have them hold it because it's the foot's so big, and then the ankle rocker allows for such dynamic pivoting that it really works and you can have a lot of fun with it. That's something that Neca can often get away from, the articulation part that's fun about action figures, where they typically side with the sculpt and paint and everything, the look of the figure as opposed to the playability of the figure. And that's not necessarily a bad thing one way or the other. It's just that something that they tend to focus more on the look and how the figure is, as opposed to like how it can like actually move and hold poses and stuff like that. At least that's my experience. But given the design of these turtles, they kind of had no choice here. And so by default, they get the best of both worlds. And I just really love that about this line and Donatello specifically. And then the other thing that I love about these figures are the subtleties in the paint on their legs, where their skin has like little specks, for lack of a better term. They're not quite freckles, because I think Mikey actually has freckles on his face, but these are just like little, I don't know, just little spots on their skin that is like something that gives it some character, but it's so subtle and understated and you can hardly see it. At least on my Donatello, you can a little bit, but it's just enough to give it a little bit of variety, and I really appreciate that in these figures. And then like the rest of the figures in this line, they're a ton of fun to pose and play with just on their own and getting them into cool shots on their own, because they just look cool. And the turtles typically like have that coolness inherently in them. But these figures especially, like I said, because of the foot and everything, they're able to do a lot of cool things. But I had a ton of fun putting this Donatello with other characters from other lines. And their design, it just works very well with a lot of other lines. So for what I was able to do, Marvel Legends, Power Rangers Lightning Collection, the Jada Street Fighter Mega Man figures, they all kind of work really well with this line and Donatello specifically. The other turtle lines from Neca can work with this Donatello. However, you might have to fudge some of the animated series and any of the live action stuff. That's a little bit of a stretch, and that's across the board with any live action figures, probably a stretch, but the little bit less with the animated series, and then maybe slightly less with the Archie comic series. But all the other lines, the Mirage Comics line, and then, you know, this line and the other NECA comic lines from that they put out, they all work really well with this version of Donatello, and that's just a ton of fun. And then I think that he has such a anime-inspired animated look, but the hard lines and stuff kind of give him a little bit of a comic book look as well, that your mileage with other action figure lines is probably not going to be that difficult. You'll be able to probably make things work with him if you're trying different shots. And that's a really big plus for this line. And now I wanted to talk about the accessories. So Donnie's got like the most accessories, if I'm not mistaken, out of this entire line. He's got the 3 basic accessories that each turtle came with, which is the pizza, the smoke bomb, and the turtle comm. And those are cool. Again, I'm glad that we get something, but I didn't find a lot of use for them. Maybe the turtle comm, but like the others, I didn't really find a lot of use for. But still, I'm not going to get upset about any pizza that I get. I'm just going to say that, unless it has penicillin on it, and then no thank you. But Donnie also comes with 6 extra hands, and those are fine. You know, like the rest of the turtles, you can make them work with different things that you need to do, and so that's cool. There's still something annoying about the hands to me that I kind of wanted a little bit more out of them for some reason, but I can't fully articulate that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Then there is the bow staff, which is really neat, and it has the separated part that will allow you to slide it in to his hand a little bit easier, but it also allows for that part to be taken off so that you can use the bladed staff extension, which is really awesome. Then he has the tracking device, which is really cool and it looks neat, and I appreciate that because it's, you know, from the show, and that's always cool. And, you know, a tracking device works pretty well for some shots that you might be trying to do, and it just looks like a weird gadget regardless, so that's fun. And then he comes with goggles, which is something that not all Donnies have come with, but it just seems to work. And these work pretty well with him, although I'm not sure how often I'm going to pull them out and use them with him, but it's nice to have them as an option. And again, he just looks cool with goggles. That's also my opinion. So, there's that. And then lastly, he comes with Dr. Cluckingsworth, MD. And I absolutely love that Neca is including these smaller figures with these figures, because it's just a little bit of world building. There's not much to it. And considering that he's a chicken with a exposed brain, it's fantastic. And just having that in some shots in the background mixed in with some Pokemon or just like other weird characters from this line is fantastic. And I'm like hugely into that and a big supporter of that. So I hope NECA can continue to do that with their Turtles lines and give us more of these weird, obscure little characters. Oh, and then I almost forgot. Then we have the two heads. Donnie comes with the pupilless eyes as the default head. And as I mentioned earlier, something about the head and the body, it just annoyed me, and it just didn't look quite the way that, I don't know, there was something about it that I just didn't really care for. I generally love the pupilless eyes, and I think that I actually do like that head sculpt. It's just that the initial shock, I don't know, I gotta get it in the right pose, or maybe the bandana wasn't in the right position, because that's another thing I keep forgetting to mention in these reviews, is that the bandana is articulated, so you can have it sway to either side however you want to do it. I don't know, maybe there was something in that, but it could also be that I just really loved how the pupilled head looks, that maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something there, because this pupilled head is a lot of fun. It's Donnie looking goofy and his eyes are wide, and he's either like excited or scared, or just he's feeling a lot of emotion. And it's just a lot of fun to put him in different shots with this head, because it says so much without literally saying anything at all. It breathes like a liveliness into the shot just by having that goofy look on his face. And then partnering him with Professor Honeycutt, who also always has a perpetual look of befuddlement on his face, is, I don't know, a lot of fun for me, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. However, again, I have to say that I had a horrible time switching heads on these figures. I did not enjoy that. Hopefully that's just my experience, and maybe yours will have an easier time doing that. But overall, I really enjoy this line, and I had a lot of fun with Donnie. Like the rest of this line, the posability and all that, and the fact that it was compatible with a bunch of other lines, just really made up for an enjoyable experience playing and posing these figures and stuff like that. I do wish we would have got a spinning bow staff. That would have been cool. And I think that needs to come standard with all Mikeys and Donatellos going forward. And so if you collect Donatello figures, then this is an obvious get. If you have a shelf dedicated to staff wielders, then he'll definitely work there. If you collect figures of characters that Rob Paulson has voiced, he checks that box. Or if you have a shelf dedicated to Brainiacs of different teams, then Donnie will absolutely be able to hang with them there. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments. Did you like this show? Do you prefer this Donnie with the pupilled eyes or the pupilless eyes? Do you like the bladed bow staff? Let me know in the comments, and until then, else time.